Ever wondered what really happens when you just go silent? I'm not talking about pulling back a little or giving them the cold shoulder. I mean completely disappearing. No texts, no calls, no trace of your existence. What do they actually feel when you're no longer around? In a world where people take each other for granted every single day, silence becomes the most powerful tool you can wield. If you've ever been treated like an afterthought or felt like you were just an option in someone else's life, then this video is for you. Today, we're diving into the 10 intense emotional stages they go through when you decide to remove yourself from their life. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll see why silence isn't just golden, it's transformative. So, let me ask you, have you ever had to go silent on someone to reclaim your own peace? Drop a quick yes or no in the comments. Your story matters, and you might just inspire someone else to take that step towards self-respect. Stick around until the very end because there's a final stage that will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about walking away. Now, let's dive in. Number 1. The initial shock. The first thing they feel when you go silent? Shock. They never expected you to actually disappear. In their mind, you were always going to be there, always answering, always available, always forgiving. You were the safety net, the one they could fall back on whenever they wanted. And then, suddenly, you're gone. At first, they might brush it off. Oh, they're probably just busy. They tell themselves it's nothing. But as hours turn into days, reality starts to set in. The usual text notifications? Gone. The random check-ins? Nowhere to be found. The realization hits like a brick. They no longer have access to you. And here's the thing. People don't fear losing what they have. They fear losing what they think they'll always have. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. That's exactly what's happening here. You've taken control of your presence. Instead of being someone who can be ignored until needed, you've become someone whose absence is undeniable. And that's when the panic starts creeping in. Did I do something wrong? Are they mad at me? Their mind races, searching for answers. But you remain silent. And that silence is louder than anything you could ever say. Number 2. The void of missing you. At first, they thought they wouldn't care. Maybe they even convinced themselves that life would be better without you around. If they leave, I'll just move on. No big deal. That's what they told themselves. But what happens when you actually disappear? That's when the void sets in. It starts subtly, little moments where they instinctively reach for their phone, expecting a message from you, but nothing comes. Their routine feels different. Something is missing. The conversations, the energy, the presence you brought into their life, it's just gone. This is where the true impact of absence begins to sink in. See, when someone takes you for granted, they assume your presence is just part of the background. They don't actively appreciate you because they assume you'll always be there. But the moment you disappear, they start to feel a growing emptiness. And it's not just any void, it's one that eats away at them, making them realize that they weren't as independent as they thought. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And that's exactly what's happening here. They imagined that losing you would be easy. But the reality? It's much, much harder than they expected. At this stage, they might try to fill the gap. Maybe they surround themselves with friends, distract themselves with work, or even find someone new. But it doesn't work. No matter how much they try to ignore it, the void stays. Every song, every place, every random moment that reminds them of you feels like a gut punch. But here's the real irony. They didn't appreciate you when they had you. They thought they could do better. Or maybe they thought you'd always be around. But now they're stuck dealing with the emptiness of their own choices. And here's where your silence becomes more powerful than any confrontation ever could be. Because instead of arguing or begging for their attention, you did the one thing they never expected. You walked away and you didn't look back. And with each passing day, that void only grows larger. Number 3. Overwhelming curiosity. By now, the silence has settled in. The initial shock is gone and the void is undeniable. But something else starts to take over. An intense, almost obsessive curiosity. At first, they tried to brush it off. They're probably just busy. Maybe they're taking some space. But as more time passes, they start realizing, wait, why haven't they reached out? Why haven't they checked in? This is where their mind starts playing tricks on them. Human beings hate the unknown. When we don't have answers, we create them. And since you've gone completely silent, their mind starts filling in the blanks, and not in a good way. Now, they're checking your social media. Did they post anything? Are they hanging out with someone new? Are they moving on? Every time they pick up their phone, there's this burning urge to know what's going on with you. They scroll through your old texts, reread conversations, maybe even type out a message, only to delete it. They don't want to seem desperate, but deep down, they're dying for a response. Epictetus once said, "If you wish to be in control of your emotions, do not be a slave to what is outside of your power." That's exactly what's happening here. They're losing control. And the worst part, you're not even doing anything. Your silence has created mystery, and nothing drives people crazier than not knowing what's happening in someone else's life, especially when they used to have unlimited access to you. Here's the best part. The less they know, the more they want to know. They start stalking your social media more than they'd like to admit. They ask mutual friends about you, hoping to get some kind of update. And every time they come up empty-handed, their curiosity turns into frustration. This is where the power shift happens. Before, they felt in control. Before, they thought you needed them more. But now, you're the one in control, and they hate it. Number 4, self-reflection and regret. At this point, the silence isn't just unsettling, it's forcing them to face something they've been avoiding all along, their own actions. When you were around, it was easy for them to overlook things. They didn't have to think about how they treated you because, well, you were always there, always responding, always available, always caring. But now that you've disappeared, there's no more distractions, no more validation, no more comfort. And that's when the self-reflection kicks in. They start replaying past conversations in their head. They think about the times they ignored your texts, the times they brushed off your feelings, the times they assumed you'd always be around, because in their mind, you were. But now they're left wondering, did I push them away? Was I too distant? Did I take them for granted? And here's the thing. People hate admitting when they've made mistakes. It's uncomfortable. It challenges their ego. But when you go silent, you leave them with no choice but to confront themselves. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Right now, they don't have power over you. They can't control your actions. They can't predict what you'll do next. The only thing they control, their thoughts. And those thoughts, they're brutal. The more they reflect, the more they realize how much they messed up. The guilt builds. The regret starts creeping in. They start wishing they could go back in time and do things differently. But here's the truth. It's too late for that now. Your silence has done what words never could. It's made them see your value. And that realization, it stings. Number 5, the urge to reach out. At this stage, their regret has fully settled in. The silence is no longer just uncomfortable, it's unbearable. And now they feel an overwhelming urge to reach out. They stare at their phone, debating whether to type a message. Maybe they even start drafting one, something casual, something harmless, just to check in. But deep down, they know exactly why they're doing it. It's not about checking in, it's about regaining control. When someone goes silent, it creates an imbalance. They used to feel secure knowing that you were always there. But now you flip the script, and the only way for them to restore their sense of control is to get some kind of reaction from you. A response, a like, even just a read receipt. Anything that reassures them that they still have some level of influence over you. But here's the kicker. They don't want to seem desperate. They tell themselves, I'll just send a casual message, no big deal. So they type something like, hey, hope you're doing well. Or maybe, just thinking about you, hope everything's good. It's vague, it's nonchalant, but make no mistake, it's a test. They're waiting to see if you'll take the bait. This is where many people make a mistake. They see the message, they feel validated, and they respond. But a Stoic doesn't react out of impulse. Epictetus once said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. They want you to respond, not just because they miss you, but because it puts them back in a position of control. But what happens if you don't respond? The uncertainty eats at them. They start overthinking, wondering if they waited too long, if they did something unforgivable, if they've truly lost you for good. The urge to reach out gets stronger and stronger. And the more you maintain your silence, the more desperate they become. Number 6, the battle between ego and emotion. Now they're caught in a war within themselves. On one side, their ego refuses to accept defeat. It tells them if they cared, they would have responded. It reassures them that they don't need you, that they're fine without you. But on the other side, their emotions tell a completely different story. They feel the emptiness. They feel the regret. They feel the weight of your absence in ways they never expected. This internal battle is exhausting. One moment, they convince themselves they've moved on. The next, they're checking their phone again, hoping for some kind of response from you. Their pride tells them not to double text, not to chase, not to look weak. But their emotions are screaming for them to do something, anything, to break the silence. This is the moment where they might start making excuses to justify reaching out again. Maybe they didn't see my message. Maybe they're just busy. They might even start crafting scenarios in their head where you're the one in the wrong, just to make themselves feel better. But here's the truth. If they truly didn't care, they wouldn't be thinking about you this much. The fact that they're struggling internally is proof that your silence is working, and it's driving them insane. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Right now, they're realizing that they don't have power over their mind. Their emotions are in turmoil because they never expected you to be strong enough to walk away. And here's the beauty of it. You're not doing anything. You're not begging, not arguing, not trying to prove your worth. You're simply existing in silence. And that silence is forcing them to confront feelings they've never had to deal with before. But rather than facing those feelings head-on, many will try to regain control in the only way they know how, by playing games. And that's exactly what comes next. Number 7, the attempt to manipulate. At this stage, their ego is bruised, their emotions are unstable, and they're running out of ways to regain control. So what do? They start playing games. If they can't get your attention the honest way, they'll try to trigger a reaction in a different way, through manipulation. Maybe they suddenly post pictures of them out with friends, laughing, partying, looking happier than ever. Maybe they start posting cryptic quotes about moving on or finding peace, as if they weren't just debating texting you for the 100th time. Or worse, maybe they make it look like they've found someone new, just to see if you'll react. But here's what they don't understand. A Stoic does not chase, and a Stoic does not play games. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." Their attempts to manipulate you, that's beyond your control. And the moment you stop caring, you win. See, they're expecting you to react. They want you to get jealous, to reach out, to break your silence. They want proof that they still have an effect on you. Because as long as you're watching, as long as you care, they still hold power. But what happens when you don't respond? When you don't check their social media, when you don't engage in their mind games, when you truly couldn't care less? That's when panic sets in. Now they're left questioning everything. Why aren't they reacting? Are they really over me? Did they actually move on? Their own game backfires, because the only thing worse than losing control over someone is realizing they never needed you in the first place. And that's when they start to feel the full weight of something they've been avoiding all along: silence. Number 8, the power of silence. At this point, they've tried everything. They've gone through the shock, the regret, the desperation, and even the games. But none of it worked. And now, they're left with nothing but silence. Silence is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. People can handle arguments, they can handle being yelled at, they can even handle rejection. But what they can't handle is being ignored. It leaves too many unanswered questions. It forces them to sit with their own thoughts, and in that silence, they start to realize the truth. Maybe they never had as much control as they thought. The absence of your voice, your energy, your your presence. It weighs on them more than any confrontation ever could. See, most people expect closure. They expect a final argument, an emotional farewell, or at least an explanation. But when you give them nothing, it leaves a gap that they can't fill. It leaves a question that will never have an answer. And that drives them insane. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Say nothing if it does not improve upon silence." That's exactly why your silence is so powerful, because it says everything without saying a word. At this stage, they start questioning themselves in ways they never have before. Was it really you who needed them? Or were they the ones who needed you all along? Were they truly in control? Or was your presence what made them feel stable? The deeper they fall into this spiral, the harder it is to climb out. And the worst part? You're not even there to see it. You've moved on. You've reclaimed your time, your energy, your peace. And now, while they're drowning in self-doubt, you're thriving. But silence doesn't just make them reflect, it makes them panic. And that panic, it leads to the next and most desperate stage of all. Number 9. The fear of losing you forever. Up until now, they still believed somewhere deep down that you would eventually return, that this silence was temporary, that at some point you'd break and come back. But as more time passes, that illusion shatters. This is the moment when the fear truly sets in. Not just discomfort, not just curiosity, but raw, gut-wrenching fear. The thought that maybe, just maybe, you've actually moved on, that they're no longer on your mind, that their place in your life is no longer secure. This fear hits them harder than anything else, because now it's no longer a game. It's not about ego, it's not about power, it's about real loss. And nothing makes people value something more than the threat of losing it forever. They start replaying every mistake they made, every moment they took you for granted. They wonder if they could have done things differently. But most importantly, they start fearing the worst-case scenario. What if they found someone else? What if they're truly happier without me? What if I was never that important to them after all? Epictetus once said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our view of those things." Right now, their own mind is their worst enemy. They don't even know if you've moved on, but the mere thought of it torments them. And this is when they break. Some will start reaching out in desperation. Long, emotional messages, apologies, even pleas. Others might try to act like nothing happened, casually texting as if they weren't just spiraling in panic. And some, they might even show up unannounced, hoping to force a conversation. But here's the truth. By the time they feel this fear, it's already too late. The person they thought they had control over, the one who was always there, always caring, always forgiving, is gone. The tables have turned, and now you hold all the power. And that power, it leads to the final most important stage of all. Number 10. The final realization. This is the moment everything comes full circle. They've gone through shock, regret, obsession, and even desperation. But now, they finally get it. They realize that the person they once knew, the one who always responded, always cared, always put in effort, no longer exists in their world. You didn't just walk away. You evolved. You became someone stronger, someone wiser, someone who no longer depends on their validation. And that realization, it crushes them, because now they see the truth. You were never the one who needed them. They were the ones who needed you. They see how much you contributed to their life, how much value you brought, how much they took for granted. And the most painful part, they can't undo it. They can try to reach out. They can try to reconnect. But even if they get a response, it won't be the same, because you're not the same person anymore. You've outgrown them. You've built something for yourself that no longer requires their presence. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And that's exactly what has happened. You've reclaimed your strength, you've mastered yourself. And them? They're stuck in the past, longing for something that no longer exists. See, when you go silent, it's not about making someone miss you. It's about learning your own worth. It's about understanding that you never needed to chase, beg, or convince someone of your value. Your absence did all the talking. And now they're left with only one thought. I should have treated them better when I had the chance. But now, that chance is gone. You've seen why silence isn't just powerful. It's transformational. It forces people to confront their own actions. It shifts the power dynamic. And most importantly, it teaches you self-respect. A Stoic doesn't chase. A Stoic doesn't beg. A Stoic doesn't seek validation from those who fail to appreciate them. They walk away, knowing their value is not dependent on anyone else's recognition. So now, let me ask you, have you ever used silence to reclaim your power? Comment yes if you have, or no if you're still learning to walk away. And remember, your greatest power isn't in what you say, it's in what you choose to leave unsaid.